Welcome back to the show where we expose the monsters and myths that you're likely to encounter as obstacles on your innovation journey. Today's guest is James Dodkins, who is the customer experience rock star. And I don't mean that in the typical marketing bollocks way. I mean, James is a genuine guitar-toting customer experience rock star who now teaches, coaches customer experience and customer experience professionals all over the world. Welcome, James. Do you want to tell the audience a little bit about you and how the hell you went from being rock star to customer experience rock star?
Yeah, so it's kind of like a full circle thing, going from being a real rock star to a somewhat pretend rock star now. But so, yeah, my name is James Dodkins, and I used to be an actual real life, legitimate award-winning rock star. But now I'm not. Now I'm a customer experience rock star. And the reason I am the customer experience rock star is that me and my team travel around the world performing musical customer experience keynotes, or at least we used to before the whole, that pandemic thing that you might have heard of. They're really good fun. Musical examples. I play guitar in them. I tell tour stories. Now available virtually at www.jamesdodkins.com. But the way I got from being a real life musician rock star to a customer experience rock star, it's quite a weird path. So when I stopped doing the music thing, when I stopped being an international rock god, I decided to do the next logical step, take the next logical step in the progression, and went and worked for an insurance company.
Yeah, that definitely, I can see the logic there. Just as exciting and glamorous, yeah?
Yeah, so I was on the phones selling insurance to people, cold calling, and after, a couple of minutes, realised, wow, this isn't what I want to be doing with my life. So I set myself a bit of a path to progress through the company, was convinced I was going to be CEO one day. Then I got made redundant. And I was like, what do I do now? And at my time with this company, we had loads of really expensive, crappy consultants come through. And I was like, you know what? I could be a really expensive, crappy consultant. So I did. I became a really expensive, crappy consultant, traveled around the world, worked with some really cool companies. But the problem was, in order to excel in the corporate world, I'd created this corporate persona for myself, suit and tie, briefcase, fancy watch, all that stuff, because I thought that is the way you had to act in business to get anywhere in business, because I didn't go to university, I didn't go to college. The only stuff I'd learned about business was like from cartoons. So that was my business knowledge. I was like, this is how you have to be. And although I was successful and although I was earning great money, I was miserable because I wasn't being myself. I was literally trying to do everything other than being myself. And in the customer experience world, it started to become more and more saturated with consultancy and with training. And I was trying to think, well, how do I stand out from the crowd? What can I do that's going to differentiate myself? What can I do that's going to be different? What can I do that's going to make me more memorable than the next person? And it all sort of hit me all at once. I heard a quote from a guy called Jerry Garcia from the Grateful Dead. You heard of him?
Absolutely, 100%. I'm that old.
There you go. Good. But the quote is, and I might be paraphrasing a little bit here, so don't come at me, deadheads. Don't be the best in the world at what you do. Be the only person in the world that does what you do. And it sort of all hit me all at once. I was like, oh my God, I've spent all this time trying to hide this past that I had. I never told anyone about my music career because I thought they'd, judge me. I mean, the judgments would be correct, but I didn't want them to have them. I was like, why can I not marry these two things together? And I'm embarrassed to say it, but at that moment, it took me that long to realise literally the similarities between putting a good show on for your fans and delivering a good experience for your customer. There are so many similarities. The paths are basically identical. I was like, well, why can I not do it through that lens? Why can I not help people learn about customer experience through the lens of music? And the customer experience rockstar was born.
Yes, absolutely. And for those of you who haven't seen, go and have a look at James on YouTube and see what his keynotes look like, his guitar toting keynotes look like, and that, and you marry the two worlds absolutely excellently. But that brings us then on to, must have, in your experience, faced a lot of monsters and myths that have been barriers and obstacles to you progressing. And I keep on calling them innovation monsters and myths, but it's not just innovation, it's just actually change and transformation. It's trying to do something different in an organization. You hit up and get so many obstacles in your path. So have you got some monsters and myths to share with us today? And
Yeah, man.
what is your first one?
It's mostly myths because I spend a lot of my time talking to people about myths, as we'll call them for the purposes of this, saying, look, this is what everybody thinks you should do. That's stupid. Don't do that. This is why. So
Exactly.
loads of them. Do you want me to start getting into them?
Please do give us your first
Right.
myth. That is a stupid thing that people, and you're 100% right. That is exactly my definition of the myths, is common misconceptions and beliefs that seem to be repeated over and over until it becomes law, and people believe that, that's intrinsically true, and yet we come in and we go, that's total bollocks, and this is what you really need to be doing. So please, what's your first one?
Number one, just go and ask your customers what they want.
Oh, geez. Yep. Yep.
It's the stupidest thing. Dude, have you got kids?
Absolutely. They're old now, but I have
All right,
kids.
cool. If you think back to like when they were little enough to have a conversation, but not old enough to have any sort of sense whatsoever, if you ask them, what would you want to eat for dinner? What are they going to say?
Oh, sweets, ice cream, something like that.
Yeah, it's going to be
Hamburgers,
gummy
McDonald's.
bears, yeah, McDonald's, chips, pizza, all inside of a burger, deep fried. And the problem is, feeding the kids what they say that they want is both bloody expensive and really unhealthy. It's exactly the same for customers. Giving them what they say that they want is really expensive and really unhealthy for the relationship with the customer. And I'll explain why. Customers are really bad at articulating what it is that they really need. We're only really very good, me included, you included, at giving an extrapolation of our current situation. You're never going to innovate anything if you just ask your customers, hey, how do you want us to be as a random person? How should we run our multi-billion-dollar business? And I know people, it sounds so counterintuitive, like when talking about customer centricity and customer experience. Of course, you should ask your customers what you. No, I'm not saying don't talk to them. Talking to them is super important. You need to understand who they are as people, understand their expectations, understand their goals, their successful outcomes, their targets, their needs, and then deliver the experiences that deliver on the needs. Now, the thing is, we as customers only really want three things. Do you want to know what those three things are?
I can imagine what some of them are, but please do. Yeah.
Basically, we want more, we want it cheaper, and we want it faster. That's it. You go
yeah.
to a customer and you say, "Hey, what do you want from us as a company?" It's going to fall into one of those three categories. They're either going to go, "Oh, everything's cool. Just I want it faster and cheaper and more of it." That's basically what they're going to say. So if you are about to do a big project to find out what your customers want, I've just saved you hundreds of thousands of pounds or dollars or rand or whatever you're working in, and you're welcome. Think about it when it comes to a kid. You don't give the kid that diabetes burger that you were talking about because you understand that that is not going to help deliver a successful outcome for the kid. You're not going to feed them the bad food because it will not deliver the successful outcome. We as parents or guardians know the successful outcome to grow up healthily. Because we know that successful outcome, it means that we will deliver something completely different, something that the kid doesn't say that they want, but we know that they need. We'll give them a healthy, balanced diet. That's what we should do with customers. Understand what is their successful outcome. And then don't give them what they say that they want. Give them what they really need. Give them the things that will help deliver that successful outcome. But it all starts with understanding what that outcome is. So the myth is we should just ask our customers what they want. My take on it is no. Give them what they need, even when they don't know it for themselves.
And so you said the myth in terms of asking your customers what they want. My take on that has been for a long time asking the right questions. It's so important to go and speak to your customers, as you said,
Yeah.
but speaking to them is not the same as saying, what do you want? You've got to understand them. And it goes back to basic marketing 101. I have a daughter who is an absolute marketing maven of note. I said I had kids, they are old, they're in their 30s. And she had taught me a long time ago about psychographic profiling and creating customer profiles, but proper customer, not just putting people in boxes. You know, when my bank targets me, they target me as a bloke in his 50s who has no kids at home anymore, and is at a particular stage in his life. So they send me loyalty offers and rewards to go to things like museums. I ride motorbikes, go to EDM concerts, and go scuba diving for leisure. I'm an adrenaline junkie. They know nothing of me, so they give me the shittest experience in the world because they've put me in a demographic box. They haven't understood me as a proper customer. And you know, they don't even bother asking me what I want. They give me what they think their perception is of what I need, which is just as damaging. So it's
Well,
not
dude, what
just,
they've probably done is they've probably got like the standard cookie cutter 50-year-old dude
that's it.
and said, "Hey, what do you want?" And they go, "Oh, I'd love to go to museums." And go, "Oh, everybody wants that." Then, but you're talking my language with this 100%. And it wasn't one that I was going to bring up, but I think as you've stumbled upon it, we probably should talk about it. Segmenting customers by demographics it's the wrong way to go. And I understand in the past it's the only way we could have done it. But nowadays we got to look at the psychographics, and you're exactly right. We shouldn't segment our customers by what they are. They happen to be male. They happen to be this age. That's by circumstance. We should be segmenting our customers by psychographics, who they are. I don't care what a person is. I care who a person is. And you might find, look, it is really easy to put a group of people together that share the same demographics and have them be completely nothing alike.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to put a group of people together that share the same psychographics and not have them be all pretty similar. So I'm with you on that wholeheartedly, man. And I think it's almost offensive in a way to just assume that all men at this age are the same. All women at this age are the same. All people that earn this income are the same. All people that live in this area are the same.
Yep.
We are not the same. No two people are the same. Now, the best way would be if you have 100,000 customers, you have 100,000 different personas of customer. That would be like the holy grail. We're not going to get there. Or maybe we will.
Well,
maybe this is the innovation we need.
This is, you know, and we are diving down a little bit into specifics, but I believe that with today's technology, not even in tomorrow or the next decade's technology, but with today's technology capability, you can achieve micro segmentation down to a customer segment of one. This is not impossible, and it shouldn't be the holy grail. It should be, this is what I do expect as a customer in today. Maybe because I'm an early adopter and I work a lot in tech and things like that, maybe I've got inflated expectations, but it's not impossible to do. We've got the compute power, we've got the information. Geez, have you seen that the Netflix thing, the Social Dilemma thing, right?
No, I haven't watched it yet. People have warned me. I think they've said make sure that you're in a good mental place before you watch it.
Well, I only watched it because of all the hype around it. It didn't teach me anything I didn't know already, and it won't teach you anything you don't know already, because we work in this world of trying to understand people. It's just that their aims of understanding the people are a lot more nefarious than ours are. But there will be no surprises to you in that documentary, and you'll nod and you'll go, but didn't everybody know this? But the thing is that what it's demonstrating is that they already have the capability of segmenting and targeting you down to you specifically, what your express interests and needs are, even unmet needs and unarticulated needs, because they're picking up on your behaviors and the things that you're doing in the background that aren't overt. And there's a huge amount of psychology that goes into it. And these big organizations are already doing it. I'm waiting for that to filter down into the Monday, everyday stuff, so that places like my bank will be giving me a highly personalized service right now. You know, places like where I go to shop for my clothes will understand exactly who I am as a person down to the minute detail. But
Yeah.
that is a great starting myth in terms of
Well, dude, let me tell you a little story
hmm,
that will highlight segmentation between demographics and psychographics. Let me tell you about two men. One is called Charles and one is called John. Okay. Now, both of these men are a very similar age. They were born in the exact same year. They have both been married more than once. They both have grown up kids. They are both high net worth individuals. They are both business owners. And what else? Oh, yeah, they both live in castles. So, traditionally, with traditional demographic segmentation, we would go, these are literally the exact same person. They're essentially a clone. We should treat them the exact same way. We should build experiences for them the exact same way. We should market to them in the exact same way. However, if I tell you that Charles, his full name is Charles George, otherwise known as the Prince of Wales, and John is John Osborne, otherwise known as Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness, you start to see that demographics don't paint that whole picture, and you need to dig a little bit deeper into those psychographics.
that is such a brilliant, and that is perfect. That encapsulated exactly what the problem with, yeah, trying to figure out that you know your customers better than they do when you're using a demographic segmentation like that. Brilliant. That was a great myth to start off with. What's your next one?
Um, what is a customer experience? Okay, so if we were to say to most customer experience professionals, okay, you talk about the customer experience, you talk about improving the customer experience. What is a customer experience? Most customer experience professionals will say a customer experience is the sum of the thoughts, feelings, and interactions a customer has with your company. And most people will sit there and go, well, yeah, that sounds about right, James. That's fine. That is dead wrong. That is the least customer centric way to define what a customer experience is possible. It is the most company centric way. What we need to do is realize that customers interact with with our companies because they are trying to achieve a goal or an outcome. They're not interacting with us because they want to interact with us. They're trying to achieve something. And they're also going to be interacting with many other companies in order to achieve that goal or outcome. So there's lots going on before and after they ever interact with us. The description I've just given is just our part of the experience for the customer. It's like saying the only thing that happens in the customer's life is interactions with us. No, there's a lot more going on. We are just a small part of a bigger picture. And it's like the companies think they are the entire canvas when in fact they are just a brushstroke on it. They need to step back and see that bigger picture. And once you start to see that the customer is interacting with many other different products and services on that journey towards achieving that goal, you can start to look at experience in a very different way. You can start to look at collaboration in a very different way. You can start to look at how you design these experiences and processes in a very different way. So I think the actual definition of what a customer experience should be is this. A customer experience is the sum of the thoughts, feelings, and interactions a customer has with and about different products and services on the journey towards achieving a goal or outcome. That is the customer's experience. The way we've been looking at it until now is just our part of that.
So what's your recommendation to people in terms of moving to that new point from the old point of your classic textbook definition taught in universities and courses all over about what a customer experience is. How do you advise organizations to move into that new way of thinking? And how do you dispel the myth that that's not a customer? Do you just simply walk in there and go, you're all wrong, this is it? How do you take them on that journey and get them to understand this?
Like 90% of it is mindset. 90% of it is just having somebody explain it to you in a different way, and you go, oh, of course, yeah. There's more going on. The thing is, I get kickback from this. People say, yeah, okay, but we're only in control of that part, so that's the only part that matters. What? Just because that's the only part that you control doesn't mean the other stuff doesn't happen. It doesn't mean the other stuff isn't important. And it doesn't mean that the other stuff isn't something you actually can change and make better in the long run, whether it is by extending your products and services to encapsulate some of that stuff or collaborating with other companies to make it happen better. I mean, for me, a lot of times collaboration is just as good as innovation because no companies do it. Collaborating together with another company to help make an overall experience better is a really cool thing to be able to do. And maybe that's something we can talk about afterwards. But a simple way to do it is by simple journey mapping. Map out the customer journey. So for people that don't know what that is, essentially you are just doing post-it notes, and you write on the post-it note the steps that the customer has to take. Companies fall into the trap of starting with the first interaction with them and ending with the last interaction with them. For me, what we should be doing is starting with the customer's awareness that they need to achieve this goal or outcome and ending with the achievement of the goal or outcome. And you map every single interaction the customer has with every single different company, including yours, on that journey towards achieving it. And then once you understand it, you can start to see, wow, there's so many other players in the game. There's so many other people. Take a flight, for example. We might say, okay, we're an airline and we're going to map the customer journey of taking a flight with us. It doesn't start from when they check in and it doesn't end when they get their bag from the carousel. It starts with the awareness they're about to take this trip. So, okay, I'm about to take this trip. I'm going to travel to the Bahamas. Next step, I go online, I Google things. Next step, I choose the airline. Next step, I buy the ticket. Next step, I buy some new clothes for the thing. Next step, I pack my bags. Next step, I travel to the airport. Next step, I get into the airport. Next step, I check in. Next step, I go through security. Next step, I eat some food in the airport. Next step, I get on the plane. Next step, I get off the plane. Next step, I have to go through immigration. Next step, maybe security again. Next step, get the bag. Next step, get to my hotel. Next step, enjoy the vacation. Next step, come back. There is so much more happening than just that little section. And in knowing that, it really helps you. It gives you a foundation to innovate the experience because it unshackles you. Because you think you're only operating within this small little box when in fact you are operating within a massive arena. And once you realize that you are operating within that massive arena, you can start to do things that no other companies are going to do.
And just you going through that very simplified high level journey of somebody, at each one of those steps, I was thinking, yeah, that's how somebody could collaborate. If they were an airline, oh, they could do this, they could offer that, they could provide this information that would influence the person's decision to make them the airline of choice for the trip, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And it's that simple way to start. It's a really simple way to start innovating because if you've got two companies that are both trying to innovate an experience and one is working within this little box and one's working within that extended scope, you've just got so many more areas that are untouched that you could work with. Maybe you could offer transfers from the home to the airport. Maybe you could do things where your bag gets checked in when they pick you up from your home. Maybe you could do things where you take the bag to the airport. Maybe you could do things where there's fast track security. Maybe you could do things where you partner with the hotel to give updated flight time. There's loads of stuff. Maybe you could partner with a hotel where they check in at the hotel as they leave, give the bags over to the hotel person. You don't then see the bags again until you've landed the next day. There's loads of cool things that you can do if you just extend that scope a little bit.
Somebody, I can't remember what company it was, but somebody definitely must have done a decent journey map or a much better one, because I had seen a thing, I think it was last year or something, where it might have been Virgin Trains, where the idea was you traveled separately from your luggage, which is quite attractive to, I at the time when I'd seen this, I was traveling frequently for work. And when you left the hotel, what would happen is that your dirty laundry would get sent off to a dry cleaner, so that when your bag was delivered back home again, all the stuff in it was clean, ready, packed, folded, ready for your next business trip again. And I
That's
thought,
genius.
wow, that was, yeah, and it wasn't a huge additional cost. And I thought, man, I could see if airlines did this for the people that were traveling a lot, and maybe even, convenience for holidays and things like that. Think about, you come back from holiday with all the great things on holiday, and my wife the next day wakes up and goes, oh, look at the washing basket, because the washing basket, and that would just be, it would be a great end experience to the holiday if 2 days later there was a knock on the door and there was all of our bags complete with all of our stuff all washed, ready to go on our next holiday again. So that
Well,
is a,
exactly. I mean, for me, that is. It might not seem like a big thing, but that is an innovation to the experience.
right.
And again, if they were just focusing on the train portion of the experience or the flight portion, they would have never have come up with that idea because you need to be looking outside of those boundaries to realize that those things even happen. And imagine how cool it would be, especially if you're flying a lot for business or traveling on a train a lot for business. Like maybe like in the UK, a lot of people travel into London on a Sunday evening or a Monday morning. They stay there the whole week and come back. Imagine if the hotel and the train company work together. You've basically got a separate wardrobe at the
Yeah.
hotel that you stay at most of the time. You leave it there over the weekend. It gets washed and dry. Again, a really cool innovation that we've just come up with there this second, just by extending the scope, just by
Yeah.
thinking a little bit differently. And I think sometimes that's all you've got to do. Just change your thinking a little bit and give yourself. It's unshackling yourself because we operate within what I like to think of as an industrial age world. We're carrying industrial age mindsets into the future, and we look at things like processes. We think that everything's on a production line. We think everything has to be in a hierarchical pyramid. We think there has to be chains of command, different departments that work against each other most of the time. Whereas when you free yourself from that mental prison, you start to come up with ideas that you just never would have allowed yourself to come up with before. So for me, most of this stuff is just mindset change. It's like when people came and said the world is round, it's not flat. People would look out the window and go, "No, it's not. I can see it's still flat. It's not out there in the world that anything changes. It's all in your head."
That fantastic myth, and that was born from your question of what actually is the customer experience, or the myth about what the customer experience is, being dispelled and explaining that it's a lot bigger than a lot of people think. We've got time for one more. If you've got one more,
I've
last
got a whole
couple.
list of them. Let me see which one.
We can always have you back for another show again. I mean, this is absolute gold. This.
Okay,
Give us another
right.
one. Pick
Oh,
one at random.
org charts. Okay, so the myth is that the organogram, the pyramid, the triangle with the CEO at the top and the frontline workers at the bottom is the best way to organize a business. Now, for the record, I hate the term frontline. It's the dumbest term in all of business. We're not fighting a war with our customers. What idiot came up with that phrase? We need to, let's say, customer facing employees. I might still say frontline by accident a couple of times, but you know what I'm talking about. So the customer facing employees. Where that comes from was from all the way back in the day with Adam Smith. He went into a Scottish pin factory and he looked at their output and realized that their output was really largely dependent on who was in work on any given day and the amount of skill that they had. So if they had loads of really good people in, they'd make loads of pins. If they had loads of crap people in, they wouldn't make very many pins at all. And he theorized, well, wouldn't it be a really good idea if we just take the process of making a pin and split it up into their discrete tasks and then train people to just do that one part of the process really, really well. And that was the division of labor. It was written about in his book, The Wealth of Nations, which was published. Do you know when it was published?
Many, many, many years ago.
Yeah, 1776, which of
Gee,
course is a
I did not know
yeah,
it
which
was
is
that long ago.
exactly, that's like over 250 years ago, probably. I'm not very good at maths, but it's a long time ago. And another thing happened in that year as well, which was the Declaration of Independence. And the US took that model of economic organization and ran with it. And the thing is, what happened was, is you'd have, the wire extruder, you'd have the wire cutter, you'd have the pin sharpener, you'd have the head putter on, whatever they're called, the packager, and it would all be split up. They didn't need to ask anything about any other part of the process because it didn't matter to them. All they had to do was just do this thing over and over again. And then, of course, you'd have people that managed certain parts of the experience. So you'd have the people that managed the extrusion, you'd have the people that managed the manufacture, you'd have the people that managed the packaging, and then you'd have somebody above them, the chief pin maker. They would be the person that knew the most about pin making. Now, the problem is, extrapolate that forward into the 21st century. I'll ask anyone out there, is your CEO in your business the person that knows the most about the day-to-day goings on in your business? Nah,
Not a bloody
it's not going to be
chance.
the case. But we have taken this model that was created in 1776 for a pin factory and extrapolated it into the 21st century. We've tried to meet the future by doing what was created in the past, and it's created chaos for people. Because what it means is we've got this triangle where the lowest paid, least respected people in the company are at the bottom. The highest paid, most respected person in the company is at the top. And of course, the people at the bottom that are lowest paid, least respected, least invested in, least trusted people in the organization are the people that interact with our customers. We take our most precious resource, our customers, and give them to the people that we seem as least precious in the organization. And we train them that in the org chart, the further you move away from the customer, the more money you get paid and the more important you are. We've created an environment where the majority of people in a business think that the customer is not their job. So we have essentially modeled our world on a pin factory. Now, the thing is, he increased output by over 24,000%, apparently. Adam Smith did. I wasn't there. I don't really know. And so at the time, it made sense to take on this economic model. And for a very long time, it worked extremely well, having that division of labour. But it was a massive departure from traditional craftsmanship. So if we were going to make a chair, you would have a traditional craftsman that would choose the tree. They would cut down the tree. They would take the tree back to their tree making, chair making cabin. They'd chop it all up. They'd mill it themselves. They'd do all the. You can tell I don't know anything about woodwork, but they'd make this chair themselves. Then they would sell the chair themselves, and they would repair the chair themselves. They would service the chair themselves. They would be involved in every single step of the process. They would have to be a master craftsman. The pin makers didn't need to be. They didn't need to know anything about any other parts of the experience. All they needed to know was how to sharpen a pin. Don't ask questions. That's what you do. That's what we do today. Don't ask any questions about any other part of the process. Your job is to do this thing. You get paid to do this thing. If you do it well, you will get bonus for doing this thing. Don't ask questions. The person above you tells you what to do, and the person above them tells them what to do. It's not conducive to customer success. We've not built our organizations to deliver successful customer outcomes. We've built our organizations to manage tasks and activities. So I think we need to do it in a different way.
I, I, yeah, it's not just that we've built our organizations like that. Sadly, that's how we educate our children at the moment.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that to me is, I mean, that's got nothing to do with the monsters and myths in innovation, but to me, that is a huge monster myth, misconception. I don't know what. We are not, we're raising children for a world that no longer exists because we are educating them for an industrial age, industrial era that you've just highlighted has been in place for over 200 and something years, 300 years, maybe even. Um, and yeah, we need to rethink what what we need now is not the same as what our parents and grandparents and everybody before them needed.
yeah, yeah.
And yet all of the majority of our company structures perpetuate exactly what you're saying, that, and I hadn't thought of it like that in terms of the further you are away from the direct customer, the more you are actually rewarded and the more money that you earn. And it always has been on the basis of, well, you must know the most and therefore that's why you're up there. But but if you know the most, why aren't you giving the best experience then to the customer? Why aren't you? That is
Yeah.
that's
For the people listening, there's a wicked video from a guy called Ken Robinson, dead now, unfortunately, RIP, in peace. But he says, again, you can't meet the future by doing what you did in the past. And he talks about education. And he's saying so many things. We group kids together based on their age, for example. And we think, well, yeah, that makes sense. He's saying, well, why is the most important thing about the kid their date of manufacture? He's saying we're meeting it with an industrial age mindset. And it is exactly the same in the business world. We have this industrial age mindset. We treat everything as processes, and we treat our businesses as factories. I mean, if you, dude, the crazy thing is, right? If I need something, I've got to find something. This is going to be worth it. If I show you that thing there on my call mug, what's that?
That's an on-off button, a switch.
No, it's not. Try again.
It's a sticker that looks like an on-off button.
There you go. It's a picture of an on-off button. Right. It doesn't exist. It's just a drawing. The organogram doesn't exist. It's just a drawing. It's a collective hallucination. It's a figment of our imaginations. It's just a very persistent one. We all come together and say, okay, this is how the world is. We build our actual headquarters of businesses using that as a blueprint. Every time, CEO on the top floor, frontline workers at the bottom. But it doesn't exist. The only reason we operate in that way is because of the way that we draw the chart. It's just a drawing on a piece of paper. It's not real. And I think we need to reinvent this. We need to draw it differently. If we drew it differently, we would operate differently. We're not bound by it. It's not a physical thing. We treat it as a physical thing, though. We talk about climbing the corporate ladder.
Yeah.
We talk about chains of command. We make it, it's not personify, but whatever the word is I mean for that, the physical term of personify, you know what I mean? We make it as if it is a real thing, but it isn't. It's just a drawing. And we have constantly been bound with this mindset that we cannot break out. It's a drawing on a piece of paper, for God's sake. We can do better and we can do different.
I think that's one of that's arguably the biggest innovation blocker that you've described there. Well, blocker to progress even is exactly organizational structure. And on that note, we're going to wrap up for this session. And as I say, maybe we'll have you back on another show, seeing that you've got a long list of monsters and myths. I reckon that we could probably turn this into a multi-series just of our own here. It's been fantastic having you on the show today, James.
Thank you.
People, do you want to give a shout out with your primary website where you want people to contact you? Is that James Dodkins or is that Rockstar CX?
Yeah, go to www.jamesdodkins.com if you want to check out my musical keynotes. If you want to check out my training, the Accredited Customer Experience Specialist Training, which is an online training and certification program, check out acxs.co.uk. If you want to link with me on LinkedIn, just search for James Dodkins. I'm like the only one. Or Instagram, the CX ROCKSTAR, Twitter, at J Dodkins. There's not much consistency there, but just type in my name, you'll find me. I'd love to connect with all of you and talk about this for as long as you've got.
Fantastic. And I'll put all the links in the show notes as well. Great having you on today, James. Thank you very much.
Thank you.